Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Black Diamond. John Leveni is here with you. Monday, the 22nd of August, 2016. I'm really excited for tonight's call, as I am every week on the Black Diamond. Welcome to the mountaintop, if you will. Tonight we're going to be having a great conversation with somebody I've known for a few years out of Australia. Cool guy. He's one of our senior coaches here with Digital Altitude. But before I get to that, I do want to remind you about our upcoming event. We still have a lot of planning time. It's 2 months out. We're going to be getting together for our first ever Marketing Mastery event here in Digital Altitude, and that is, of course, going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, October 21st, 22nd, 23rd. You can grab your tickets inside your Digital Altitude website. It's right there on the dashboard as soon as you log in. And, of course, you can also see the details about the $150,000 affiliate contest that is underway as I speak. So definitely check that out. And also a quick reminder for everyone, join us each day here on dalivecall.com where you can get our daily wake-up calls. And in addition, on Friday, the call is all about you guys, right, where we get to hear from everyone about your successes for the week, and you can invite guests, and they can hear literally inside Digital Altitude what's going on. So put that on your calendar. You can add all these calls to your calendar right from dalivecall.com. Just go ahead and click the calendar feature, and it will add it right to your iCal or your Outlook or whatever you use. So here we are on the Black Diamond. We're going to be talking about something that I think is a very important topic, and I think will accelerate everyone's movement towards your goals, because I've got an idea about what this topic is that this gentleman who I'm about to bring out, what he's going to be talking about. And when I was just speaking with him for maybe the 30 free seconds that we had today, you know, Mondays are always full on mayhem, which I love. I'd rather be busy than bored personally. But when he was telling me, you know, what he wanted to deliver to everyone today, it reminded me of a book that I had read some years ago, a book by a guy named Viktor Frankl. Some of you may have heard of him or his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Powerful idea. Here was a guy who was in the concentration camps in the whole Nazi Germany and that whole thing. And he wrote this book talking about how men and women obviously are driven to find meaning in their life. And I think what we're going to be hearing tonight from this guy who I'm about to bring out is a very powerful way to find and add meaning to your goal, not only your goal setting, but your goal achievement. I mean, it's one thing to have a goal. And I think everybody here probably, if you've been through the steps, right, you've got a goal, you've set a goal. But now achieving that goal, we can do it fast or we can do it slow. I think it's more fun to do it fast. I think it's fun to do it on purpose. And what we're going to hear tonight is about how to create meaning with all that, and how to, well, you know what, let me hear from this guy, because I'm excited to hear his take on this. As long as I've been around personal growth and studying philosophy and success psychology and all the things that I've had my brain in for the last 25 years or so, I'm always interested in hearing new perspectives on things, because, my friends, I don't think any of us have arrived. You know, I'll take any insights that I can get from people who have walked a path, maybe a different path than me, and we've had this opportunity to come together here and converge on the path where we can all learn from each other. It's one of the most beautiful things about what we've got with Digital Altitude, is that ability for us to shorten the learning curve and to have other people perhaps illuminate the path, because they've seen maybe a little bit further down it, or they've seen some different features on the path that we can then employ for our own benefit and our own profit. So with that, let me bring out this guy all the way from Australia, Mr. Drew Innes. Drew, how are you, sir?
Hey, John. Pleasure to be here with you, mate. Great as always. It's a
Good on you, mate.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I know. Australian. Crikey, everybody, it's Drew Innes.
I noticed that you were trying to put your best Crocodile Dundee accent on there, mate. So I'm not sure. I think the jury's out on how you went. So hopefully everyone on this call will be able to understand me. So I'll try and well, I can't slow things down any longer, because that's a bit of a problem. Everyone says that us Australians sort of speak really slowly and we draw things out. So maybe I'll try and speed things up.
I have no problem hearing Australian, but of course, Drew, you and I have worked internationally for years and years and years. I don't even hear the accents anymore. Do you hear mine?
Just a little. You sound
But you
Australian
can
to me.
understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. I hope you can. I hope everybody can.
Exactly. I can. I can. Mate, look, I am, it's an absolute honour to be here. It's an absolute honour to serve with you and to serve the broader digital altitude community. And just as you mentioned on that wonderful introduction, I've been an avid student of personal and professional development pretty much all my life. I was mentioning to the people that I'm working with at the moment, just guiding them through steps 9 to 15 and into the business plan at the moment, that my big epiphany came when I was actually just 12 years of age. I can remember that, I was having sort of, going through a little bit of a struggle with family life because my parents had just been through a separation and were heading towards a divorce. And somebody handed me a book by Dennis Wheatley called The Seeds of Greatness. And, there's always two paths that you can always take. You could, I could have quite easily have, just thrown the book in the corner of the room and, let the family situation distract me. But alternatively, what I did is I actually turned the cover and I started reading the book. And by the time I got partway into the first chapter, I was absolutely hooked. And by the time I'd actually finished that book, The Seeds of Greatness, just at 12 years of age, I can tell you that was like an epiphanic moment for me. It was like somebody turned the light bulb on, and I realised just at 12 years of age that if it was to be, it was up to me. It was like as clear. It was crystal clear to me. And from that moment moving forth, I made sure that I sort of brought more books into my life, got involved in book summaries, started to become that person that, went to seminars, surrounded myself with the right type of people. And that was really, I think, a turning point for me because I know lots of young people where, they grow up in maybe, what many people would consider a dysfunctional family situation or are dealing with parents that are going through a separation or divorce. Lots of kids turn the other way. They don't have good coaching and mentoring. They don't have a guide. They don't fall, into the right, younger social set, and they don't find themselves, handed the right type of material that could turn their life around. So I directly attribute the investment that I have continuously made in ongoing personal and professional development as to, why I'm here today. And also why I've been able to weather, mate, I always tell people I've had 4 commercial lives. If you look at my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've personally founded, funded and operated businesses in construction, finance, business coaching, and mentoring, and here in online sales and marketing and sales training. So 4 different commercial lives, massive highs and lows along the way, literally, riding that entrepreneurial roller coaster as we do. But I can tell you, at the highlight of my life, I was still doing personal development, and at the low points, where you're flat on your back and there's only one way, and that's up. And if you don't muster up, the inner strength to get up and move beyond your circumstance, then you may as well just stay down and, be dead in the water. The thing that got me through was always the commitment to personal and professional development. And I'm opening the call in saying that because I find it interesting, having come from a traditional bricks and mortar style background. Like the first company that I created for myself, I started from a $6,500 line of credit on a credit card, and I built it into a $50 million enterprise. It was a construction company. And in fact, it was rated the 27th fastest growing construction company here in Australia, in our country. And I did that as a young man. And what's interesting to me is I think about the success of that business as it grew through its first 6-7 years, And just as I had invested in myself in terms of personal and professional development, I put a lot of investment back into my company and into my people and really focused on their personal goals and objectives and made sure that my organization was surrounded by, everything that was uplifting about personal and professional development. And we had this independent consulting company come in and do what at the time what was called a happiness survey on my organization. So they were doing happiness surveys on publicly listed companies, so all the, sort of top 100 companies, and they were doing happiness surveys on privately owned companies and companies that were part of the Fast 100. So they sent in a consultant at the time. This is back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, a guy by the name of Peter Berry. And he did this survey on my company, and the results were off the chart. And he asked me what I thought I was doing different to most of the other, privately owned construction companies and even some of the publicly listed companies. And I said I had this strategic investment in my people at a core level to help them with their personal goals and objectives, because it's the one thing that got me through when I was a young person. So that was something that I brought into my company, and the happiness level rated off the charts. And I find, if you when you're around people that are just genuinely happy, they've got a smile that lights up the room, and they've just got that persona that you're attracted to, you'll find that behind the smile and that persona is probably somebody that's genuinely happy to the core because they're living on point. They're probably doing what they love. They're probably to some degree goal-oriented. They feel that they're living their life on purpose. And whether that's by accident or by design is sort of what I want to talk about today, because I think for some people it does come quite naturally. I know people. I know people where you just look at them and life seems to be easy for them. And I'm not saying that they've got it easy, but I'm just saying it just looks like they're in total ease. And even the whole notion of goal setting and life planning and financial planning, it doesn't look like they're doing anything extraordinary over the top, to be somebody that's on the top of their game. So, I do believe for some people, maybe they're just vibrationally, operating at a higher frequency, a higher level, and it just does come so easy. So I would call that them being in ease. And for others, maybe for a whole bunch of everyday people just like myself and you and the other people on the call today, we've got to put a little bit more time and effort into it. So we've got to put more time, money, and effort into the whole process, of getting our thinking right and getting our behaviours right. And for that, I think we've all got to have a strategy. And that's what I want to talk about today. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think I'll take any advantage I can get, Drew. When it comes to personal growth, which if I can just go off on a quick tangent, because I can't wait to hear what you're going to be teaching tonight. But a lot of times, especially the online marketing space, which I've been involved in for some years, I think sometimes people are looking at the whole operation as just being one of data and logistics and very cold and calculated. And certainly there is, there's math involved and stuff like that. But I don't think we can deny, I certainly can't, that not only do people buy from people, right? So people are the ones who are originating whatever's happening on the web, right? Some human created this stuff. But also the question that I've asked myself and that I've posed to students throughout the years and seminars and things that I've done is the idea of who's doing this work. So we know, because we can go through training, we know what to do, or we can learn what to do. But the bigger question is who's doing it? Who's going to do this work? So that's where I think my brain's going right now, is just based on what you're talking about with personal growth. It's the individual, it's the being themselves behind the work, which makes an enormous difference. And so I'll pass it back over to you, Drew. I'm very intrigued by this.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I totally agree. You were really touching on this whole notion of be, do, have, sort of people getting themselves to a point where they can emanate and perpetuate that state of being that they need to be in to take stock of life leadership. So tonight I'm going to be talking about life leadership and life planning, right? Because we do spend a lot of time focusing on goals. So I want to try and I'm going to make some reference to some easily accessible resources here. They're all around you and they're pennies on the dollar. So a lot of what I'm going to draw upon tonight comes from just a simple book that everyone should have read, because it definitely should be possibly in your top 5, if not top 10 definitely, and that is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. And what I'm going to be drawing upon predominantly is I want to talk about habit 3. Now, habit 3 is all about first things first. Now, if any of you on the call have been through Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and really internalized it and, more to the point, acted upon it, you would have probably realized that habit 3 is really, really important, probably even more important than sharpen the axe, because what it introduces you to is this whole notion that we've got you know, in our busy lives today, predominantly a focus on time. You know, time is our most precious resource. In fact, you know, I sort of talk about, well, I've got an interesting notion about that. I'm just going to take a sidetrack for a moment. I often talk to Levi, my young son, about, you know, making sure that he understands, you know, to not waste time, because it is a precious resource. But more importantly, I think one of the most underutilized resources on the planet is actually human potential. And I think to a certain extent, it's actually more important than time. People waste a lot of time because they're wasting their human potential. And what I'm going to be covering here tonight is also going to be tied up around that as well. So I just want to sort of set some rules here, or get some definitions and understanding on the table. In habit 3 of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey is talking about physical creation and getting on top of what he calls first things first. Now, this is the whole notion of the compass versus the clock, right? The compass versus the clock. When it comes to goal setting, we all get consumed around time, that sort of precious resource that's not infinite. We all get, you know, the same amount of 24 hours in a day to expend, and how we expend it really determines on how, you know, what sort of degree of control we've got over our own life leadership, and therefore what goals and objectives we will achieve. So ultimately, if you think about this, managing your time is all about commitments, appointments, and schedules, right? So that's the clock. Whereas compass is more about the direction that you're going, which is all about life leadership. It's all about values, principles, mission, goals, and vision. So what type of vision do you have for your life? What principles do you live by? What are the things that you value most? What is that sort of burning desire, that ultimate mission and vision that you have for your life? Like, what is it that you've come here to do? So that's all tied up with compass. And many of you would have heard that saying that, you know, lots of executives, when they're busy climbing the corporate ladder, get to the top only to look around and realize that they've got the ladder leaning against the wrong wall. That's a great analogy, because it talks about, you know, the busy actions that we're taking, head down, bum up, to achieve goals and objectives and climb the corporate ladder, but to what expense? What are the things that, you know, what's the pay value that we pay over time to actually achieve those goals and objectives? And for many people that have sort of climbed the corporate ladder, they realize that the pay value, the price that they paid, wasn't actually worth the goal and objective that they achieved, because when they look back, they don't have a strong relationship with their wife, they don't have a strong relationship with their children. In fact, I talk to people every day and they say it's the one thing that they wish they had their time over, because they've hit certain financial goals and objectives in their life, but they have no relationship around them. That's compass. That's driving your life forward. So taking leadership over your life in the context of what I call your highest priority relationships. So one of the things that I developed was this whole approach and training. This whole it's an implementation strategy for life leadership and life planning. All right, so I'm going to give you a breakdown of it. So, and it's tied in with goals, but what it allows you to do, every person that I've taken through this exercise has come back to me and said, you've completely changed the way in which I'm now approaching goal setting, because I'm not goal setting now based on event-based things, like things that you want to have. You know, want a new pair of golf clubs, want a new car, want a new house, I want. And they're all usually time-based event things. So you set a short-term, mid-term, or long-term goal. It's usually around things, not experiences. It usually has no context to who the primary relationships are and the roles that you play in your life, which is where all the meaning is. So one of the things that I developed was this 30-day challenge for my personal coaching clients. And what I get them to do is I get them to do this exercise. So make some bullet points as we go along now, because I'm going to give you an implementation strategy around this. The very first thing that I do is I get them to plot a chart. So if you can imagine, on the horizontal axis, it has time. So on the horizontal axis, it has time. So, and I get them to plot 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and 10 years. So if all of you have a piece of paper there now, just imagine on the horizontal axis you've got time, and on the vertical axis, you've got money, right? Just say, well, let's put money, but also what I want you to now start to think about is relationships and roles on the vertical axis. So on the vertical axis. Now, when I talk about roles, what I mean is, I'll give you an example, and it's easy for me if when I'm talking you through this, I use myself as an example. Okay, so in my example, I play a number of primary roles. I have a role to self. I have a husband role with my wife, Lulu. I have a father role to my beautiful daughter, Avalon, and my son, Levi, who are 13 and 10 years of age. I've got a sibling role to my two sisters, Lisa and Louise. I've got a son role with my father, and my mother's no longer alive. And then I also have relationships with all of my, business colleagues, my business partners, and so on and so forth. So the very first thing that I get my students to do is go through and think about who the highest priority of relationships are. So what relationships do you hold dearest? What are the most important? And this is a challenge in its own self, in its own right, because now all of a sudden you're thrust into a situation where you need to think about who you have the highest priority of relationship with. Is it your children or is it your spouse? If it's your children, in what order? And this is a challenge, guys, but it's going to become really, really important when I lay out for you what we do as the next step. So the very first thing I do is I prioritize, right? And I'm not going to share, I won't share with you the ultimate, my ultimate priority, because it's very personal to me, but I want you to think about that exercise. So the second thing that I then do is on the horizontal time axis, I chart at the 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year, and the 10 year timeline points, the ages of my highest priority relationships. So for example, if we were projecting forward 10 years from now, my starting age would be 53, Lulu's would be 46, Avalon's would be 10, and Levi's would be 13. He's about to turn 14, but we'll say 14 because he's about to turn 14 in September. So 53, 46, 10, and 14. And the reason why I do that is because my family, to me, represents my highest priority of relationships. And what I want to do is I want to create a life plan over the course of the next 1, 3, 5, and 10 years that considers the highest priorities of goals and objectives that will bring the most meaning to our life in the context of experiences that we want to have together. So it's not about a new pair of skis or a new car or a new house or anything like that, unless the house and the way in which you want to provide safety and security and all the rest of it, life experiences within a family home, are valuable to you. And the reason why I've thrown that one in there is because when you look at my directive affirmation that I wrote personally, one of my statements says that I want to provide a happy and safe family home that accommodates my children and my wife through all stages of their life development, which may mean that over the course of the next 10, 15 years or 5 years, we might have to change family homes a number of times, particularly if our requirements as they become young teenagers and so on and so forth change. So housing became an important priority because it showed up in my personal directive affirmation. But all the other stuff is just stuff. I mean, let's face it, cars, skis, golf clubs, all of that other stuff is just stuff. So it didn't show up in my directive affirmation, and none of it was a priority in my goal setting. Right, so what I now do is I plot on the timeline how old is Levi going to be 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now. So you've now got a clear picture. You can look at one sheet of paper and go, well, you know what, 10 years from now, I'm going to be 63, Lou's going to be 56, Levi's going to be 24, Avalon's going to be 20. What are the life experiences that I actually need to provide for? What do I need to financially prepare for? What are the life experiences that we're going to want to share together? Because let's face it, from the time someone said to me once, when your children turn 14, 15, it's like they've been abducted by aliens, and they're going to disappear out of your life probably for anywhere from 8 to 10 years, and it's like they're magically transplanted back into your life around 20, 21, 22, 23, subject to their emotional intelligence and the time, money, and effort that you've invested in bringing them back, and you're going to have a completely different relationship with them. So I wanted to create a life plan that had meaning, particularly for my children over the course of the next 1, 3, and 5 years. I also wanted to make sure that I had a life plan that accommodated my family through all their changing, through their life changes, through ages 10 right through to 20. I also wanted to make sure that I came up with a life plan that enabled Lou and I to have a happy, healthy, loving relationship as we become empty nesters. So, and the reason why I'm talking this way is because in my experience, when I turn up to events and I speak, to people that have made a decision to build a business like this, it's not uncommon that the average age of the room is around 45, somewhere around 40, 45, somewhere around there. Isn't that interesting? So most people around 45 years of age are looking to re-career themselves into a new direction. And if you're looking to re-career yourselves into a new direction, I dare say it's because you want to completely change your life. You're wanting to create more fulfillment in your life. You're wanting to create more money. You're wanting to free up time, because you can never buy back time, but you're wanting to free up more time so you can have more time doing the things that you love with the people that matter most. This is all compass. This is all about compass. This is about living your life on point. This is life leadership. This is about who are the highest priority of relationships in your life. What are the actual life experiences that you want to share with them? Now, to the extent that you can start to get crystal clear on this life plan, this map, you're then going to be able to start to create purposeful, and meaningful goals and objectives, which means the decisions that you make over the course of the next 1 year, the next 12 months, aren't going to be at the expense of what you want to achieve 3 years from now, and what you want to achieve 3 years from now aren't going to be at the expense of what you want to achieve 5 years from now, and what you want to achieve over the next 5 years aren't going to be at the expense of the way in which you want to experience your life based on the value of your highest priorities over the course of the next 10 years. This is life planning. And what I find extraordinary is no one has a life plan. I've met very few people that have a life plan. I've met a few people that have goals and objectives. Most of them are material-based. Most of them aren't actually based on their primary roles and objectives and their highest value of relationships. So they're all event-based goals focused on things, the acquisition of things, as opposed to the creation of experiences that truly matter. And at the end of the day, you're not going to be buried in the box with the car and the house and the golf clubs and all the rest of it. The only thing that you're going to be reflecting on and taking with you is the memories of the experiences that you've had with the people that matter most. So one of the challenges that I get people to do now is to come up with that roadmap. So it starts with vertical axis time, vertical axis, roles and relationships and priorities. So who are the highest priorities? Horizontal axis is time, breaking it down into a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year window. So you can see the ages of the highest priority of relationships. Why is that important? Because if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s or 60s, your life plan strategy is going to be different. If somebody's on this call and you're 20 years of age, then you've, as they say, got your whole life ahead of you. So you're already ahead of the game because you're learning this right here, right now on this call, and you can't pretend to unlearn it. We're now teaching you a strategy to have a crystal clear life plan moving forward, and that's going to put you ahead of the game. But if you're on this call and you're in that 40s to 50s age bracket and you're looking to completely reinvent your life personally, financially, and have it more meaningful and create better life experiences, then what you've now got is a roadmap to do it, and you can do it based on the highest priority of relationships. The second thing that I do, the next thing that I do after we've got that context mapped out, is I set a 30-day challenge. So every morning, for the first 30 minutes every morning, and for the last 30 minutes every evening, I get people to actually work on their goal, their life plan. So it's called the 30-day, 30-minute challenge. So for the first 30 minutes of every day and the last 30 minutes of every day, I get them to focus on their life plan. And we do things over the course of weeks. So in the first week, we focus on the ideal vision of our ideal life based on the priority of relationships 10 years from now. And the reason why we look at the 10-year window is because if people are conditioned to think about what life's going to be like tomorrow based on what their current circumstance is, I find it a challenge for them to open up. So what I want them to do is I need them to start to think about not what's going to happen tomorrow or a week from now or 30 days from now or 60 days from now in starting this business. What I need people to do is think about where could your life be 10 years from now based on the value of priorities, based on the value of the highest priority of your relationships, if you're starting with a clean sheet of paper. Because that's essentially what everyone is starting here with. Everyone on this call is enabled now with the same vehicle as everyone else. It's an equal opportunity. So it's like you've literally recalibrated. You're starting with a clean sheet of paper. Forget your current circumstance. Forget what's happened in the past. What you need to think about now is what does your ideal vision of your ideal life look like 10 years from now? And come up with a really expansive vision of that, right? And so I get people to think about that for the first week of the 30-day challenge. So every morning, 30 minutes, every evening, 30 minutes, first thing they do in the morning, first thing they do in the evening. And the reason why I do this is because people spend more time every morning and every evening doing stuff that doesn't matter on Instagram and Facebook than they do planning their ideal life. Everyone does it. We all fall foul of it. You think about what you tend to do every morning when you wake up and every morning when you go to bed if you're not conditioned to do things differently. Most people reach for their mobile phone, their tablet or their computer. They open it up. They're checking emails. They're checking Skype. They're checking text. They're not spending that first 30 minutes getting a clear vision of their ideal life and setting upon their day from that perspective. Same thing in the evening. The last 30 minutes that most people spend in the evening, which is the most important for planting brilliant ideas, big ideas, expansive ideas into your subconscious mind, is they're flipping through Instagram and Facebook. What a waste of time. What a waste of life. And trust me when I say this, the people that do this, the people that spend 30 minutes in the morning creating a new habit and 30 minutes in the evening focusing on their life plan, start actually changing their habits and attitudes, start getting clear about the goals that really matter, and it's almost like, you've heard that saying, serendipitous events start to happen. All the people, the places, the circumstances, everything that you need to take your life in a new direction, it's like the universe has conspired with you. That's what can come out of this. So the 30-day challenge, every morning, invest 30 minutes, first 30 minutes in the morning. So the first week, we work on the 10-year vision. All right, and we're doing that from expanded position. Now, if somebody is closed-minded, I've got a strategy for that as well. And this is what I would recommend that you do. If you, and this is a brilliant exercise to do also to expand your vision on how you see your ideal life, particularly if you've got a life partner, and it's also a strategy to do if you've got somebody that's maybe less than supportive in working on the business. So I challenge people to get a clean sheet of paper, write on top of it $10 million. And what I get them to do is just pretend for a moment, open your mind, and just pretend for a moment that you just received a phone call and you've won the $10 million lotto. It's going to be paid in a one-time payment. It's going to be paid cash. You're going to be receiving it next week. So the challenge is, how would you split that up? What percentage would you spend and or invest in owning your life? So what are all the things that you would actually go and buy outright, unencumbered and own? So what is now what are the houses, the holiday houses, the cars, all the usual stuff that we'd go through? So what does all of that represent? And what percentage of the 10 million would you spend? And then what percentage of the 10 million would you quarantine and invest? And what type of return on investment would that generate in an ongoing monthly basis without you eroding the capital and taking any risk on it? So I get them to do this exercise, because now all of a sudden it's like a game. And, we're just like kids. We like playing games. So I can get people now to sit down and together. My wife and I, we do this all the time, and let me tell you, she can spend $6.5 million in a heartbeat setting up stuff. But what's more important out of this exercise is, if you wanted to preserve a capital base and you wanted that capital base to pay you in perpetuality, what would that need to look like? What would the return on investment be? And how much income would that generate for you on an ongoing monthly basis in perpetuality? The reason why it's such a great exercise is because your life is no different to a business. And what we need to do is now be thinking about this like an entrepreneurial business owner. All businesses need capital. They need investment capital to set up, no different to this business, because you've got different tiers in this compensation plan and leverage that you can get out of this business system, because we've got Rise, Ascend, Peak and Apex. So this business here requires different levels of investment, but it also requires a commitment, an ongoing commitment in operational expenses to market. Your life is exactly the same. So when I get people to do this exercise and coach them through it, I get them to really think about, well, what's it going to cost you to own your life? Is it $1 million? Is it $2 million? You know, if you're going to be living in a better neighbourhood and putting your kids into better schools, and you're going to be taking a better quality of holiday, and you're going to be contributing and serving in a certain way and giving back in your philanthropy activity, so on and so forth. So what is that actually going to cost you to own? Now, the flip side of that is, what is it going to cost you to operate? Because we are consumers. We're ultimate consumers. We're always consuming resources, food, education, experiences, and so on and so forth. Travel. So what is it going to actually cost you to operate? So your life is no different to your business. All businesses need capital. All businesses need operational funding. Your life, to own it, needs capital, and your life, to operate it, needs ongoing funding. So I get them to do this exercise, and it opens them up to a bigger, broader, 10-year vision of their ideal life if time, money, and effort, if time and money wasn't an issue. Because what I want you to think about is that time and money isn't an issue now. You've got a vehicle at your disposal where all you've got to do is learn some skills that we're predominantly going to teach you to become effective in marketing, and the system will do the rest for you. And it's not out of the question that a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, you've completely reinvented your life and you're taking it in a direction that's more meaningful than just short-term event-based goals and things that we acquire that subrogate the more important goals and objectives that we actually want to achieve and the experiences that we actually want to have. So this 30-minute exercise for the first 7 days is really, really critical. We get the 10-year vision right. And now what we've got is a really robust life plan. And the way that I get them to think about it is 4 quadrants. So if you can imagine a piece of paper with a square on it, and you just draw a line down the middle and a line across the horizontal, you'd now have 4 squares. And I get them to think about optimally living. What does their ideal family life look like in the first quadrant? What does their ideal occupation look like? So, you know, what is their day-to-day, what are they doing on a day-to-day basis to, you know, invest time in growing their business? What does their ideal vision of recreation time look like? And then how is money being invested and leveraged or created to fulfill on their ideal vision of their ideal life? So that's the very first thing that I get people to do. I call it the optimal living quadrant. It's like it's like the cash flow quadrant, but it's where you're coming up with a description. So this is where it's not first and foremost financially driven. See, to the extent that you can dream big and go deep and then articulate in words your vision of what you see your ideal life looking like, then we can go about achieving it. And this is where, you know, vision boards and visualization and meditation are so important, because we think in pictures and we need to impress those pictures into our subconscious mind, and then we convert them into words and feelings, which then should result in actions. So what I get my students to do is now to think about, you know, to like literally go into the family quadrant and take some quiet time to visualize what does the ideal vision of your ideal family life look like? What does the ideal vision of your ideal workday look like? What does the ideal vision of your ideal recreational time look like? And then how can we blur the lines, as I call it, between work life and play so you can leverage a system like Digital Altitude to create the ongoing perpetual cash flow to allow you to experience life on your terms. So we do that as part of this 30-day challenge where the first week is just focusing on the 10-year master plan in the context of the highest priority of relationships. Then what I get them to do is, so that first optimal living quadrant is family, occupation, recreation, money. I get them to think about an overlay. So overlay that with another quadrant, and it's broken up into health, relationships, impact, and legacy. So what does your ideal vision of your health look like? What does the ideal vision of your relationships look like? So that's with self and spirit. What is your relationship with other people? What is your relationship with money? Then I take them into the impact quadrant. How are you going to have impact? How are you living on purpose? How is your day-to-day meaningful to you? And then I get them to go into what I call the legacy quadrant. How are you planning for and taking those steps on a day-to-day basis to actually leave a legacy, and who is that legacy for? So if you can visualize, again, another square broken up with a horizontal line and a vertical line, so you've now got 4 boxes. Up in the top left-hand corner, health, top right-hand corner, relationships, bottom right-hand corner, impact, bottom left-hand corner, legacy. And so now you're focusing on family, occupation, recreation, money, health, relationships, impact, and legacy. And we're going, and this is why I'm recommending 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening for the first 7 days of the 30-day challenge, just focusing on the 10-year vision of your ideal life. Because if you can get that right, now what we can do is we can move back from that. We've got this big, beautiful, ultimate life plan in all of its color and glory and texture, and it's meaningful to you because it's based on the highest priority of relationships, which means I can now calibrate back and I go, well, okay, what do things look like at the 5-year milestone? If that's the 10-year vision, what does the milestone view look like 5 years from now? So when I drop back 5 years, I then go back to my chart where I'm looking at the 1, 3, 5, 10-year and my roles and responsibilities, and I'm going, well, okay, 5 years from now, I'm going to be 58, Lou's going to be 50, Levi's going to be 18, Avalon's going to be 14. What are the life circumstances that are coming up for them and what's important to them? So you can, hopefully you're starting to get a picture around why this is so important because, you know, I absolutely adore my wife. We've been together 16 years. I'm more in love with her today than I was the first time that I met her. And the reason for that is because we have a clear vision of our life together. And we've got a clear vision whilst the kids are around. We've got a clear vision when we become empty nesters. We've talked about, we just won the lotto. What are we now doing with our life? We've got a daily action plan. We're both moving in the same direction. I know at the 5-year window of my 10-year life plan, she's going to be 50. We're already planning the 50th birthday, 2 months in traveling through Europe. Why? Because it's in the life plan. Because she's my highest priority of relationship. Because we've planned the timeline around this. I know at the same time Avalon's going to be 8. I know Levi's going to be 18. I know that what's going to be important to him is those early years at college. I know he's going to want his first car. So we already have a strategy in place working with our children about these key milestones that are going to come up as they turn 18, as they turn 21, as we're going to move out of the family home and probably downsize to our retirement location, as the kids are going to need an apartment here for their education. Everything that we do is based on the compass, because the compass is the only thing that's giving us meaning, and therefore I've got this life plan, this life leadership strategy that we're executing, and we're doing it on a day-to-day basis because we know what we need to achieve over the course of the next 12 months. We know what we don't need to spend money on, because if we spend X amount of money on things that are meaningless, then that's going to subrogate the attainment of the 3-year milestone. And if we do things that are going to subrogate the attainment of our 5-year plan, then I know that that potentially could affect how I want to experience life on our terms when Lulu's 50 years of age, and so on and so forth. Mate, can I just sort of get some engagement from you, John, at this point, just so I can sort of just take stock, and then we can go forward again?
Absolutely. We could open it up for questions and answers, participation. What would you like to do?
Yeah, look, I'm happy because what I was going to there's a couple of little things here. I was going to talk about what do I do after week 1. The 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. We go into week 2. Week 2 is a focus on the 5-year milestone. So where do we want to be 5 years from now? And I've got little terms, so week 2 is all about what I call the turning point, because 5 years from now, everyone should be reaching a critical milestone point where it's a real turning point in their life, that it's absolutely crystal clear that they're on the right path, they're really heading towards the attainment of that ideal vision of the way in which they want to experience life 10 years from now. So I call that the turning point. Year 3 is what I call the milestone. That's the milestone point, because it is, John, you've been around these business vehicles long enough. You've seen people firsthand, just as I have, completely reinvent and change their lives in 12 months. But it's definitely not out of the question in 2 years, 3 years from now. So the 3-year milestone mark is a real milestone mark for me. And I have people focus on that in week 3. And then week 4 is what I call the life change, which is all about year 1. Because most people on this call, like everyone else, is looking for some degree of immediate gratification. You're looking for a way in which you can completely turn your life around over the course of the next 12 months. Now, I'm here to tell you the vehicle will allow you to do that. My concern is never whether the vehicle will perform for you. My concern is always whether you're going to perform for the vehicle and whether you're clear about why you even want to do what you want to do. So we work backwards. So week 1, we focus on year 10. Week 2, we focus on year 5. Week 3, we focus on year 3, the milestone. And week 4, we focus on year 1, life change. And the reason for that is because 30 days from now, I want people to have a crystal clear life plan. I want them to know why it's so meaningful to you, because we know there's going to be challenges along the way, and to the extent that you have such a strong connection, like an emotional connection with a life that really matters to you and who those highest priority of relationships are, to the extent that we can create that real connection, that emotional connection, I know you'll do whatever it takes to get what you want. I know that when the going gets tough, you're going to move beyond your circumstance and keep moving forward towards the attainment of this better life that you visualize. So we get right into the nitty-gritty in week 4 and break down exactly what that life change year needs to look like, and then we can bring into focus the first 90 days in the business, right? Because what you do or don't do in the first 90 days will have a massive impact on whether the first year in this business is going to be the life change year and what your 2017, 2018 actually is going to look like. So I'm more than happy to open it up for questions, mate.
Well, that's great. You know, Drew, you brought up such a deep topic, and I've, of course, read that book several times and been through the exercises, and you were identifying the roles, and you were identifying the, you know, the priorities in terms of relationships. These are big questions that a lot of times people never ask themselves because, like you indicated, quite often it's what's right in front of our face, right? Like right now, I'm looking at people in the chat roll right now who are talking about how fast can I make money? And like, okay, yeah, we're having a philosophical conversation here. Why do you want to make the money? And I think while that may sound like a simple or trite question, I could tell you, and I've shared this with other students here that I'm working with, that it's easier to make $50,000 a month than it is to make $5,000 a month if that's what you really want, is the $50,000 a month and you know why you want it, and it's something that you refuse to be denied, right? So what you're talking about here is getting a bigger picture. So 10 years is a pretty big picture, I think, right? Especially when we start talking about what legacy are we going to leave, you know, when our time here is done. And so then we break it down into smaller things, and then you go all the way down to, in this case, you were talking about a 4-week sort of coaching experience. But we go all the way down to what habits, essentially, what habits are we going to start creating right now? Who is this person who's going to have these experiences in 3, 5, 10 years? Because that's what all this goal achievement stuff is about anyway, right? It's like a car, right? I wanted this car, Drew, but did I really want the car, or did I want the experience of driving the car? Now, when at first, you know, I first showed up here in this industry, you know, all those years ago, that was about as big as I could think was, you know, quit my job and of course double my income, which was my job was killing me, and I wanted to double my income, and then I would reward myself with this great car that I always wanted, and I got it in like 90 days. I got it, and then guess what? Then I had to like widen my view. So why not widen the view up front, right? And then we can have, you know, these experiences along the way. But it's so, I think it's so valid and so profound that you bring relationship into this. And I'll just add this, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. I found that, because you mentioned visualization. I wrote about this in my first book. When we visualize the achievement of our goals, not only do we visualize the experience of driving the car, making the investments, you know, having the nice house on the hill, whatever it happens to be, but we also visualize the people in our life that we have pre-existing relationships with, our spouse, our children, whatever, right? Our coach, or you know, different people that we're involved with, and we visualize the experience we will have with them. Are they congratulating us? Are they? I mean, how do we occur to them, and how will they occur to us as the achievers of these goals and as the people who experience these great experiences? That supercharges visualization, at least in my experience with it, and what I've you know, worked with other people on. When they can see themselves,
exactly.
Right, when they can see themselves not only in possession of the goods that they desire, but the relationships and how those relationships will occur as the person who has achieved those things. My goodness, that really brings it into reality for people. We're no islands here, right? We're all working.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I was going to say was I talk about infusing it with making it sensory. So to the extent that you make every goal a sensory experience, so you invoke more than one sense, one human sense, I think you've got a higher likelihood that you'll achieve it. So if it's just you're non-experiential and non-sensory, I don't think that there's enough human emotion infused into the attainment of the goal. So when the going gets tough, it's going to be easier to quit. So case in point here, John, is like people say to me, it's not uncommon that someone will go and do they'll hit the step where we talk about the car. I think it's step 11. We introduce the law of attraction. We suggest people should go and watch The Secret, and we talk about the car program. And I quite often have people come back to me and say, "Oh, well, you know what? I'm really not into cars. I'm actually not going to do that." And I'm like, "You've missed the whole point of the exercise. The whole point of the exercise was to actually take you through a process so you could experience the whole experience of goal setting and of what it would be like to set a goal to achieve the car, to go down to the car yard, to sit in the car, to feel the seat wrap around your body, to hold the leather steering wheel, feel what that leather feels like, turn the engine on, hear the exhaust note, smell the exhaust smell. So make it sensory and experiential. And to the extent that you set every goal experiential and then do whatever it takes to experience it from a multi-sensory perspective, then you're going to have everything that you need to move beyond the good, the bad, and the ugly events that will come up along the way that will try to trip you up and sabotage you from achieving the goal that you've set and what you ultimately want. So, and for case in point, I did exactly what you did. When I first started my first construction business, I was driving around in a bomber ute, and I drove that ute for 3 years. But sitting under the sun visor of the ute, so just up above me, was a picture of this beautiful, wide-bodied black Porsche. That was my goal. As a young man, that was my goal. Had a picture of it there was pictures of it. But what I did was I turned it into a sensory experience. I actually went to the showroom, I did the test drive, felt the steering wheel, listened to the exhaust note. I sensorized that goal and objective. But every day I got into my bomby ute, when I turned the ignition on and so on and so forth, I was using the process of visualization. Like, even though I was sitting in the ute, to me it felt like I was sitting in that $150,000 Porsche and I'd already achieved my goal, right? So that's what I try and do. That's how I try to infuse every goal and objective that is ultimately meaningful to me.
Right. So experientially, and I would say interpersonally, which I think is where you've been going with this all night. We're here to have the experience, and we're not doing it alone, unless your ultimate experience is to go live in a cave and I guess be a monk or something. That's a possibility as well. It's not necessary, but some people want to do that. That's cool. In that case, you probably wouldn't be engaged in an enterprise like this. I mean, you go live in a cave right now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the reason why I became so, intrigued or maybe obsessed about shifting goal setting from event-based things to more relationship-driven and the highest priorities was because when I got to around $30,000-$40,000 a month, I was stuck. Mate, I was stuck in my business. It didn't matter, it didn't matter what I did. I couldn't seem to move beyond that. So I'd have these fluctuations, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. And I'm like thinking to myself, there's something missing here, and as quick as the money came in, we were spending it on stuff, just stuff, right? We could spend $30,000, $40,000 a month easily just on stuff. And also travel. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is ultimately not, where I want to be. This is not putting me into a situation that's actually planning for these key milestones that are coming up. And being a 53-year-old father of two in a loving relationship with my wife, I started to think, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to this. And then, the stark reality for me was, well, the kids are going to have their handout soon. they're going to want their first car. Lou's going to want them through the private school education. They're going to want the best. We want both of them to do a degree at university, even though we want them to be entrepreneurial. We want to be able to accommodate them through all life experiences. Lou wants to, and I started to think about all of these events, these interactions with people that matter most to me, and I'm thinking, this is it. Like I've been on the wrong path. Well, sort of the right path, but but a good path to be on, because people on the call are probably going, not a bad place to get stuck. But it's not a good place to get stuck if you've got bigger goals and objectives that are more meaningful to you. And what's interesting to me is when as a coach here in the business, I'll ask somebody, tell me what your financial goal and objective is. And the most common response I get from people is $10,000 a month. And I find that really interesting, because I know it's a not well thought through response. I know people are saying it's $10,000 a month because that makes them in our industry a six-figure income earner. They're over $100,000 a month. Tick it off my list. I'm in the $100,000 club. But what does it mean to your life? I'll say to somebody, well, what does that mean to you though? How are things going to be different? And they'll go, oh, well, it's 50% more, or it's 25% more than what I'm currently earning. So I figure that'll allow me to get on top of a little bit of debt and improve a few things. That's not a strategy. That's not a plan. That's not meaningful. That's not going to get you through the good, the bad, and the ugly days of building your business here. And more importantly, it's not going to get you living your ideal life. And it has no context with anything that really matters. Absolutely no context at all. So in my own situation, when I was stuck, I went to work and I went, you know what? I'm going to go deep. I'm really going to go deep, and I'm going to really do some introspective work here and figure out what really matters to me and why it's important to me. And then I'm going to come up with a plan of action to achieve it. And that's where I came up with this whole notion of life planning and a strategy to achieve it. The interesting thing, John, when someone gets through the $10,000 a month ceiling, what's the next ceiling that they want to hit? You know as well as I do, everyone wants to be a seven-figure income earner. They want to hit $1 million a year online. They want to be somebody that can do $100,000 a month, $100,000 a month. Well, here's the interesting thing. I became obsessed about it. So in my peripheral vision all around the house, I had the vision board. In fact, I created a one-page business plan. So I could just glance at a little A4 piece of paper. It had the quadrants written on it: family life, occupation, recreation, money. It had health, relationships, impact, legacy. And right in the middle of it, it had bullet points, and the bullet points were little, I call them directive affirmations. So first person present tense statements of what was meaningful to me, and smack bang in the middle of the page, it had the number. So anytime I glanced at this A4 one-page, for all intent and purpose, call it a life plan, business plan, it evoked immediate emotion in me, because I knew what value it held for me and the life I wanted to have with my wife and my children. It was interesting. I had a mate come into my workspace, not in the apartment. I live on the beach here in Manly, but when we were in our home previously, out in the backyard, I worked out of a studio, and my mate came into my studio one day, and he's a bit of a doubting Thomas. And all around me was these little A4 pieces of paper. I wanted to make sure that they were in my peripheral vision. So I had one on the wall over here to the left, one over to the right, had one behind me, one stuck on the ceiling, one in my line of sight on the other side of the room. So it didn't matter where I glanced or looked in this room, I could see that piece of paper. And as soon as I glanced at it, I could then visualize and sort of meditate on what it meant to me and what the number was. So it was like I breathed value into, I sort of breathed value into the money. When he came in, he looked around and he sort of paused for a while, and he just looked at me and he said, "What's all this bullshit?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "All these pieces of paper you got stuck around the wall." And I said, "That's my goal and objective at the moment. This is something that I'm really focusing on, and I've developed this whole strategy to allow me to get what I want." And he goes, "What a load of crap." And he said, "What, is that how much you want to make in a year?" The number was $100,000. I said, "No, mate, that's what I want to that's what I want to make in a month, because my goal is to become a seven-figure income earner. But more importantly, I know why I want to do it, because I've already established what's a priority to me. I've re-engineered how much things are going to cost, so it actually means something to me." And he goes, "What a lot of crap." And I said, "Really?" "Well, this month I was actually just short of it." And he said, "What do you mean just short of it?" And I said, "Well, this month I pulled up stumps at about $87,500. And he was absolutely flabbergasted. And I said, "This is the value of actually getting clear about what you want, why it's of meaning to you, and then also putting yourself in a situation where you've got the right people, the right processes, the right business system to enable you to achieve it." So when I look at digital altitude, I know we've got the right people, the right processes, and the right business system, but unless everyone on the call starts to breathe sort of life and value into the money, it's always going to elude you. So for that person on the call that put a comment in there saying, "How quickly am I going to make money here?" As quickly as you get to work on the introspective work that's required for you to get clear about what you want, and until you do that, let me tell you, my friend, it's going to elude you.
Well, that's why I love these conversations we have on this call and all of our calls, because it's really about people and what drives us and what causes the success itself to happen. All the how-to information already exists. Like I sort of started the conversation with here tonight, Drew. The bigger question is not what do I do. The bigger question is who's going to do it. Well, it damn well better be an on-purpose person, right? Because I don't believe that fake it till you make it works. I've never seen it work. Looking around in my own experience and then comparing that with the experience of others, certainly we could see these, flashy testimonials, online, and people, here's my Ferrari and blah, blah, blah. Not that there's anything wrong with that stuff, okay? But remember, things are the thieves of time, right? Now you got to polish the Ferrari, right? So choose well, But the real question is who's going to do this? Who's going to have this experience, and who are we taking along with us? Drew, there's lots of other things that you and I could be doing with our time. We choose to be coaches here in Digital Altitude because, like you, I've noticed that there's a lot of meaning here. There's a lot of significance and relevance here for people, and if we can, save people some time and maybe illuminate the path that we've walked before them, I think that's a brilliant thing to do. It's a very noble thing to not only to grow in our own prosperity, but to further that into the lives of other people who are just showing up right now, like the people who on the chat roll may be saying, "Well, I'm here like 2 hours, man. I just want to figure out how to pay my bills," right? So to expand the view, you're getting a peek down the road at what it looks like. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to become successful here. To make as much money as you can as fast as you can. Absolutely. The big question is why. Okay, and it can't just be because this week it's convenient for me to be in Digital Altitude because I got hooked up with this $1 trial thing or something. This is a big operation, and my friends, if you're hearing this live right now in August of 2016, this is the beginning. I don't know if everybody really grasps that, but this is something that's just getting going. My goodness, we just got that new alliance for the first time ever. Here's an accredited social media marketing university that's aligned themselves with a direct selling company. This has never happened before. This is huge, what's about to happen here. And all of us right here, even if you're 1 hour in the business, you get to participate in the shaping of what's about to happen for the years to come in this business. And Drew and I have seen this for years. We've been around. I'm not here to say that I'm the old man on top of the mountain. Drew might want to say that. He keeps talking about how old he is, but but I will tell you this: when you've got the discernment of like what Drew was talking about and the depth of the conversation that he's had, understand, even if you didn't understand a word that comes out of his mouth tonight, understand that there's a reason with a guy with this level of understanding has chosen to align himself with digital altitude. That's really what you need to know, okay, is that out of all the things that Drew could go and do to make 6 figures a month or whatever his goals are, he chooses to be here with us. Very, very interesting observation. Okay, so now, having said that, we are already, Drew, an hour and 15 minutes into this call. We haven't even opened it up for Q&A. I know I've got a few people that I've got coaching appointments with in a little bit. So why don't we open it up? If we can keep it on topic, my friends, and keep it brief, right? We'll give Drew a little bit of a tongue bath, that's fine. But if we can keep it, to like some pointed questions and we can get some feedback from Drew on this stuff, share the time, all that. Let's do some of that, Drew. What do you think?
That'd be awesome, mate.
Okay, so stand by. Here we go. Q&A session has started. So if you're on the call, whether you're on Skype or the phone, or if you're on this console thing, app thing, whatever it is, you can go ahead and put your hand in the air. I think on the phone the command is *6. And we have our first caller right here, right now. Let's go ahead and take Tabron Paul Rowe. Here we go. You are live on the call, sir. Tabron.
Okay, yeah, Drew, I thought that was very wise what you just spoke about. Could you give me the 8 steps again in the 4 square boxes?
Yeah. What you need to focus on is family,
Yep.
occupation, recreation, money. So family, what does your ideal family life look like? What does your ideal work day look like? What does your ideal recreational time look like? And then when you've got a clear vision of that, you can then focus on what is that going to cost you, and therefore how does money need to be working for you. So that's the
Drew,
first
you
thing.
said family, occupation, recreation, and what was the 4th one?
Money. How is money working for you to allow you to experience that ideal vision of your life on your terms? And then underlying that or overlaying it, either way, is a focus on a focus on health, relationships, impact, and legacy. Health, relationships, impact, and legacy.
Gotcha.
And John, the reason why I want people to maybe go a little bit deeper on this is really because this vehicle is inherently designed to make a lot of money, 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 a month. The evidence is all around us, right? So everyone's been enabled with the same powerful vehicle. So the real question is, how much do you want to make, and why is that important to you? But most importantly, it's not about how much you make. It's more about how much you get to keep and how that's going to continue to work for you to fund your ideal life experience. And really take it from John and I. We've been around this industry long enough. We've seen companies come and go. Like he said, we're only just getting started here. And I see new people coming into this business making incredible money, and they're a bit like kids in a candy store out there blowing it as quickly as they're making it. That's not what this is about. If there's one piece of advice that I can give you, have a solid strategy for making the money and investing it into the relationships that are more meaningful and or providing for your future, not just blowing it. It's very easy to come in here, make $10, $20, $30, $50,000 a month and blow it as quickly as you're making it. That's not a solid life plan strategy.
Well, Drew, I'll admit, and to Ron, this I guess would be for your benefit as well, and for everyone's benefit. The first month that I ever made over $100,000 in a month, I spent over $100,000 that month. Uh, it was, well, to some degree, I'm sure
How old were you?
I was overcompensating for an impoverished youth, and all this. And then I sobered up a bit, so to speak. And now what you're saying is absolutely the case. And of course, what are the things that we can learn at these events? Is the peak, the apex. There's so much here that can be done to find gainful employment with our money, right? We've got two forms of capital that we're working with here. One is time, and the other is money. And when we get those two leveraged, wow, we don't have to work for money, right? So many people think they've got to work for money, like they're the slave and money is the master. We got to get that relationship turned around. Money is the tool. You're its master. When we get that, we really get it, then we can be much more judicious and think a bigger play. So, Tabron, thank you for that question. Drew, I don't even see any other questions here in the queue. Last call, I guess, for anyone who wants to ask a question. You can. Oh, I see Bill. Here we go. Hold on a second. Okay, and Bill, you're live on the call. Bill, you're live on the call, sir. Bill, one more call out to Bill.
John, while we're waiting on Bill, if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can just send me an email. So they can send an email to my Digital Altitude email address, which is just dinnis@digitalaltitude.co, and I can send them a video training on this as well. I've got a 1 hour 56-minute training on actually how to go and implement this.
I'm writing that in the chat roll right now. Very good. So there's Drew's email address. Okay, Bill, one more shout out to Bill. And we're not hearing Bill. Okay, let's go to Robert in Arizona. And Robert, you are live on the call, sir.
So, by the way, what I said, what I thought that you said was beautiful, by the way. So, thank you for that. That very enlightening, wow. I don't even have words for it. That was amazing. When we have people like me, or people like all of us on the call, have goals or aspirations about what they want or who they want to be, come together, and they have other people in their lives, like their friends or their family, that say, they judge them, for what they want, and then they want them to go a specific route. Why do you think that is?
Because most of your friends and family are going to act from the perspective that they think they've got your best interests at heart, but most people want to keep you playing small because it feels safer to them. So my best advice for people on the call is you have to think big, you have to play big, but keep your. It's a bit like you probably have heard that saying, let your feet do the walking, or just your actions and your results speak louder than words. So my strongest advice for anyone on the call is, whilst you're getting up and running, keep your goals and you keep your big dreams and your goals personal to you. If you're somebody that likes external motivation and you like going and communicating them all over Facebook, and that's going to be, put you under pressure, and you like operating that way, happy days. Do that if that floats your boat. But for everyone else that doesn't want that enormous social pressure, then I would say dream big, go deep, keep your dreams and your goals personal to yourself. It's more about you going about the actions and getting the results that's going to speak volumes. And the reality is, if you stick with this system and you stay focused on personal professional development, people are going to come to you. Your well-intentioned friends and family, they're going to be coming to you, and they're going to be going, hey, you know what, I'm noticing a change in you. What are you doing differently? And it's more about the person that you're becoming through what you're focusing on, ingesting as far as ongoing personal and professional development, the fact that you're part of this community, you're getting to the calls, you're turning up to our events, you're turning up in your business with an expectation of results, so you're doing the all-important daily work. Let that be your voice. Let that be your social voice, and let your results do all the speaking for you. So I would just ignore them. I'd keep it quiet. Has that given you any help, any guidance? Does that address what you're asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to extend it one step further and just say, and for those people that are on the call that don't have a supportive partner, then the last thing that you want to do is be throwing this down their throat, and you don't want to be creating toxic or confrontational situations in your home. Same thing applies. Just make sure that you're going above and beyond all of your household duties and your relationship duties, right? Assuming that the relationship is important to you. But then, put in the additional time and effort, and they're going to actually start to see a noticeable change in you. It's going to be more about the process that you're in and the person that you're becoming that's going to speak volumes to the people that are around you and love and care about you. And if you do have somebody that may be slightly on the fence and somewhat skeptical but also somewhat open to what you're doing, then that little exercise where, hey, let's sit down and just pretend we won the lotto. How would we spend the money in terms of, what would we own and what would we then need to fund our lifestyle? Try and subtly introduce that exercise to them, because that will be an icebreaker on getting them to think bigger, to dream bigger about the life that you envision that you want to live with your life partner.
Great stuff. You all set with that, Robert?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, wow.
Fantastic. One of the things that I've discovered throughout my time here is that I don't need validation from other people. And some people are just straight up antagonistic to you, your goals, to life, whatever. And I find that attraction takes place when we put out there the best version of ourselves. So this really is a personal growth opportunity. And then, yeah, people who have eyes to see will see. But my goodness, if I needed validation from, outside of me for every decision I was going to make, I would have never done anything in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and you've left the herd, that's basically, I think, what it comes down to. So that's fine, right? The herd has its uses, but the purpose of the herd is to keep you in the herd, right? You're reaching high above mediocrity, man. Bravo. And you know what? You're plenty validated here. We will see you live in Las Vegas, and you will find quite readily that you've got many allies, many, many allies. So thanks for being here, Robert. We're going to go to our next caller, which is Solomon. And I believe, Solomon, you should be able to unmute your line and come out live on the call.
Okay, great. All right, great. How y'all guys doing?
Very good.
Yeah, this has been some very enlightening, informational, talk here that's been given. I'm new to this program, and basically I'm trying to grasp certain aspects of this new business, because I only got into this Aspire as of less than a week ago, basically. So anyways, when you talked about the 1, 3, 5 year goals, so to speak, are you recommending that is it best to have vision boards for each one of those milestone years? And also, when it comes to the 8 things that you talked about, are they blended in together, or are they basically separate, where you have to add the 1, 3, and 5 year initiatives to them?
Yeah, okay, so these are great questions. As far as, I think ideally you should have an ideal vision board that evokes the human emotion that evokes human emotion in you because of the way that the imagery is displaying how you're going to feel, right? So if you can just create that ideal vision of your ideal life, vividly imagining that you're already experiencing it, and you're looking forward 10 years, then it's probably going to involve relationships, and it's going to involve a place where you want to live, and it's going to involve travel that you want to do and that type of thing. So you'll find a 10-year vision board evoking a lot of emotion is going to sort of be the ultimate, let's call it guiding light. That's the compass, right? That's the compass. But then you may have a short-term vision board that is more about the clock. It's more about event-based goals and objectives, things, and you might have one of those for your short-term focus. The purpose of the exercise is really to try and get to create this sort of harmony where the things that you're focusing on in the short term aren't going to subrogate the ultimate attainment of the things that you want in the long term. So, when I do this with my kids, I get them to, like if I sit down and sort of say, well, what are your goals and objectives for this year? The kids will always talk about things, right? That's what kids do, until we educate them differently. So with the kids, it's not uncommon that they're going to stick, bikes and skateboards and skis and watches and iPads and, all that sort of stuff on their vision board. And, ultimately we might do that as well, also in the short term. So, I would have one that evokes that human emotion that's the bigger 10-year picture, and then I would have some others that support what you want to achieve in the shorter term as well.
So I am actually applying a short-term and long-term vision board for each one of those 8 aspects. Is that correct?
No. One vision board that is evoking one vision board that combines all of those things. So like when I look at my one vision board that's bringing up all of those things for you. But what's important is what's really challenging, but it's in the challenge that the magic happens, is if you can start to articulate descriptively the imagery that you have in your mind. So literally, and I get people to do this in preparation for their Step 15 business plan strategy session with me. They have to complete a goals workbook, and I actually get them to articulate, what does your ideal family life look like? What does your ideal occupation, like how are you spending your time working in your business? What does it ideally look like? So they've thought about the image, right? So they've got that in their mind's eye, but now they articulate that in words because now they can get to the heart of the matter. And by the mere act of picking up a pen, preferably I ask them to write it, even though I give them a Word version and a Pages version. Ideally, it's better if you write it, because through the mere act of putting pen to paper, it draws a stronger connection between what you're thinking about and feeling and your subconscious mind. So I would push yourself to articulate it in words as well.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Yeah. And then, the ultimate next step is condensing it all into, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs. I call it a directive affirmation, right? A directive affirmation. So when you read it, and I have a directive affirmation that is like literally the equivalent to about 2 paragraphs long. And when I read it, it gives me goosebumps because it has so much emotional, connection with me, right? So it's one of those goosebump things. And what I did is I recorded my directive affirmation, with some fantastic meditation music, and I listened to that from time to time. over and over and over when I'm falling to sleep, particularly if I feel like I'm getting a bit rusty or I'm in a bit of a rough patch or I really want a bit of a pick-me-up. I'll go to bed at night, for 10, 20, 30 days at a time, just with my headphones on, listening to my directive affirmation, and wake up in the morning, and I can it's literally like, it feels to me as if I'm sharpening the axe. I'm getting back on top to where I want to be.
That Gregory McConnor said something that I thought was really interesting. He said he's not really talented. He says that he's obsessed with what he does. Seems like we have to apply the same kind of approach to this business as far as when it comes to those 8 things in the quadrant. Is that does that sound?
I think to the extent that you become obsessed about going within, like all of the magic is inside of you. So it's the introspective work that you need to do. Like I said before, John and I and the leadership team here and Michael and the executive team, we have the ultimate confidence in the system. We know the system works. We've worked this system. We know the conversion numbers. There's a huge investment in time, money and effort and expertise here. I've never seen as many talented people with experience in this industry arrive at the same place at the same time with the same agenda, and all focused on developing this into nothing short of the best top tier direct sales business in the industry, bar none, and for years to come. And what I love is that we don't just have marketers here. We have people that have a deep interest in personal and professional development, a deep interest in life leadership. And, because it's often said that companies like this done right, we're a leadership factory. Who's the first person that you have to lead? Yourself. Everyone on this call needs to take personal responsibility for their actions and results. The system is here. The system is just being refined. It's not going to let you down. The analogy I use is that the digital altitude system here is like this finely tuned, highly polished Formula One race car. And the pit crew is the coaches, the sales team, customer support, Michael, the executive leadership team, and we're the pit crew. And we've just gone and rolled this thing out on the track. And you're becoming Michael Schumacher, right? What we need to do is we need to teach you how to put the Formula One race fuel in the tank with our assistance. That's like putting people in the trial offer. That's like marketing. That's like putting petrol in the tank. It's like putting people in the sales process. We're going to work with you and teach you how to do that. But most importantly, we need you to develop the mindset and the skill set to enable yourself to put yourself in the driver's seat. Because there is no way Michael Schumacher became one of the most formidable Formula One racing car drivers until he went to work on himself. You don't go from zero to hero overnight. You go from zero to hero by putting in time, money and effort into the development of your skills and your belief and your mindset. Because if I went and threw you into a Formula One race car today and hit the ignition button and said, okay, go and give me, record-breaking lap time, chances are you'd end up in the barricades, right?
Yeah, I end up hitting the home pit crew for doing the donut.
Yeah, exactly. So the analogy, again, the analogy rings true here because the vehicle is not going to let you down. You're going to let the vehicle down through pilot error, and we need to make sure that you've got the headspace, that's the entrepreneurial mindset and skill set developed to maximize performance out of the vehicle that you've all been, enabled with here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Solomon. And Drew, we've got time for two more people who are in queue, and then we got to wrap up the call. Let's see who's next. We've got a wireless caller from the 904 area code. Who's that?
It's Kalia.
Hi, Kalia.
Hi, how
Hello.
are you? Great. I'm sitting here on the call, and it's interesting that I chimed in at the exact time that the call was taking place. So thank you, Raymond, for telling me to get on the call. But it's not necessarily a question. It's just a matter of I do The Secret. I know about the law of attraction. I have my vision board. I have my 1, 3, 5, 10 goals situated. And it's just confirmation for me because I was stagnant. And I felt like, okay, I've achieved 4 of my goals that's on my vision board. Now I'm feeling like I'm not moving where I need to get to now. So this has been a refresher for me, and I'm really excited to keep going. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And just always remember, it's like it's your time now to shift gears. The shifting gears is moving into the action phase.
Yes.
The law of attraction is all about the receiving phase, and the receiving phase comes through action. And you've got the perfect vehicle here.
Well, I'm excited and I'm ready.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here, Kalia. I look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas as well.
Yay!
And we have our last caller for the evening, Wayne Richards. Wayne, you are live on the call.
Hey. Yes, sir. How are you guys doing? Good night.
Very good.
Well, it's not really a question. It's just, Drew is my coach, and I always just love to hear him talk. He has very inspirational, very educational. He's a good, really good man. I just like to listen to him. He always have really good stuff to talk about, And I just want to touch base on the what Drew was talking about, not to let this influence your home, affect your home in any kind of way, And the thing is, when I first started doing this, my wife, she was not really into it. She's somewhat skeptical in terms of online, because of all the fraud or whatever that be going on online. So she wasn't really down with it, but I didn't really let that distracted me. And today we were talking, and she said, "You really still doing this thing?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "So how much does it cost?" And I said, "I already paid for the license. It's over $2,000." And she said, "So how come you didn't tell?" She said, "How come you didn't tell me about that?" And I said, "Well, you weren't interested, so I just go on ahead and do it. I didn't want to get distracted, And when I had my coaching session earlier today with Drew, she was right there, and she said, this thing is really on." And I said, "Yeah, you see where I'm going now?" And now I'm getting an interest. So sometimes you just have to let things work and prove itself to whoever,
Exactly. Mate, it's been a pleasure working with you too. And, so that's if there's a way in which you can subtly get your doubting partners, onto a call, listen to a call, working with a coach in front of some of the material, without you force-feeding them. So you just do it in a very empathetic, sympathetic way, introduce them to the material.
Right.
I've got no doubt that we can turn even the most doubting partner around.
Definitely. That's why I got her on board, and she's done with it right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thanks,
No
Wayne.
problem. Okay, I appreciate you guys.
Fantastic. We appreciate you. And with that, we're going to end. And that looks like we are good to go. Drew, thank you for sharing this time with myself and with everyone here in the Digital Altitude community. It's always good to spend time with you. Any closing comments before we wrap up tonight?
No, not really, mate. I just, I suppose my only closing remark was that there's a lot of power in getting around the right people. So for those of you that are on the call, if you haven't already taken that next step to to come meet us at the event there in Vegas, and then shortly thereafter in the new year at our first main event, the Ascend Conference, then you take that next step because it's not just all going to be about the marketing. You're going to be able to, network with the right type of people, and you never know. You just never know what that next connection is going to mean to you and your business. I know from attendance at events, I've met 2 people that changed the course of my life and my business, both financially and personally. And had I not been at those events with an open mind and taken something away from it, then, I dare to think, what my situation would be like just grinding away in a traditional business today. So get to the events, guys. We want to see you there.
Fantastic, and I will co-sign everything you just said. I had the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had in my life through the catalyst of other people, and events are where it happens. Drew, thanks again. Everyone, thanks for joining us. I'll look forward to seeing you on the wake-up call tomorrow, and in the meantime, have a great night because you certainly deserve it. We'll see you real soon. Bye for now.